Welcome to the Rainmaker Podcast, where we elevate marketing leaders inside and out. I'm your host, Veronica Rami, master marketer, executive leader, and mentor to ambitious marketing leaders wanting to advance their careers. Each episode is filled with genuine, unscripted conversations with some of the world's top marketing experts, accomplished leaders, and industry trailblazers representing brands, both large and small. Our goal with this podcast and everything we do is to help you master your role, nurture your team, prioritize your well-being, and evolve into an industry-leading rainmaker. This is the Rainmaker Podcast. What does Instagram and the aerospace industry have in common? Actually, absolutely nothing other than a woman named Jenn Herman, a dual rainmaker who is not only the director of marketing for an aerospace company that does training and logistics, but she's also the founder of a company called Jenn Trends, the author of a book called Instagram for Dummies, and one of the most OG Instagram users from back in the day. With over a decade of experience building her own personal brand while also being a full-time marketing employee still, we discussed finding space and capacity for a full-time job and side hustle, getting started with building your own personal brand, the importance of aligning your passion with your niche, and finding the best medium of voice that works best for you. So without further ado, let's dive right in and make it rain with Jenn Herman. Jenn, welcome to the podcast.
Yay, I'm excited.
Okay, right before we push record, just so the good people know, you literally said I'm the definition of a marketer that makes no sense. And I'm like, what a beautiful way to intro this podcast. Because honestly, this is our first time really getting to know each other. So I'm picking your brain for the first time that our listeners are also getting to hear your story. It is different. I've never actually come across a marketer who is brilliant at Instagram, but also aerospace. So why don't you just give like a quick rundown of like your very diverse background? Let's tell your story a little bit.
Yeah, so I always say I'm like, life happens. Like I did not wake up one day and decide to be an Instagram expert. I totally fell into this world. So I actually moved to California. I'm Canadian originally. I moved to California 20 years ago to do my master's in forensic science. I had full intentions of being a forensic scientist and, solving murder mysteries and all that fun stuff, which is all I ever wanted to do as a kid. But life happens along the way, and I ended up doing a variety of other jobs, and I ended up working for this company called PKL Services. We are an aviation maintenance company. I've been there now for 13 years.
Yeah.
And so I'm the director of communications and marketing. Our customer is usually either the US government or foreign government. So we don't really market. It's more of like brand awareness. It's more of the communications. It's more of like all the proposal management and like PR type stuff. So it's much more on the comm side. But in that process, I had to get them to learn to embrace this little thing called social media. And when you're dealing with military who are like, we don't tell anybody anything, it was a struggle. Yeah. And so 11 years ago, I was going through this, challenge of trying to get them to embrace social media. And we overcame a lot of these hurdles. And so in that process, I was like, well, I'm going to start a blog. Like if I can get these guys to understand social media, maybe other people can learn from this. So I started this little blog called Jenn Trends in Social Media 10 and a half years ago.
Wild.
Almost 11 years. It was totally a hobby blog. Yeah. There was no strategy. There was no plan. It was just like, I'm going to post today if I feel like it. I'm going to post about this topic. But it started to evolve. And about 6 months later, I was like, okay, all my friends are on this little app called Instagram. And if I'm going to talk about Jenn's trends in social media, I'm going to have to embrace this platform called Instagram. But no one was talking about it. No one was blogging about it in any sort of strategic, advantageous way. And I was like, well, I've got this little blog. So I started doing case studies. I started doing like my scientific brain kicked in. And I was like, well, scientific theory, if I do this, this will be my outcome. And I started doing these things. And I started blogging once a week just about Instagram. And next thing you know, I was ranking on Google because no one else was blogging about it. And then it was the podcast interviews. And then it was the speaking gigs. And so it's all evolved over the last 10 years very organically. I'm very, very grateful. I have people around the world now who will give me access to their accounts or give screenshots when beta features roll out so that we can test things. And I have people email me being like, have you heard about this thing? Did you see this happening? So I can stay on top of it in a way I never used to be able to, because I've built this network of amazing people around the world who want to be involved and want to help.
Okay. I have so many questions. Also keep in mind, to those who are listening to your story for the very first time, you're doing all this concurrently with your job.
Yes.
So you've been at PKL for 13 years, but you've also been this, blossoming social media expert for 10 years.
Yes.
So, and this is a big deal. And I know I should share this with you before we officially got started, that like I have a lot of marketers who have pretty significant aspirations to one day be a thought leader for themselves,
Mhm.
and they have a perspective on marketing or current events and they want to share that. But there's this significant hesitancy to like start putting some deposits into their own personal brand because of the
Yeah.
optic that it looks bad or it's a distraction or XYZ.
Is it competing with their job? Yeah.
100%. You've done it. You've had a job at the same place
Hmm.
doing this for a decade.
Yeah.
How have you not gotten fired? Like, and that's the fear, right? That's the
Yeah.
fear, is I'm
Yeah.
going to get canned. So like, how have you navigated? Because it's both, I mean, you've been successful being employed and you're being successful on your own. So how have you found space to do it? How have you not gotten fired? Just tell me. I tell us all.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at first, I will admit there was the same fears. I
Yeah,
was like, and in all fairness, I started my blog again, no strategy, no business model. I didn't know
sure.
what was going to come of it. I didn't know that I was going to become a thought leader. I didn't know that I was going to turn into this brand that I've become. And it was hesitant. And I was very like, okay,
Mm,
I will only post things after work hours. I will never do
mm,
anything during work hours. And I'll only do this on the weekends. And I was very hesitant. And of course, after a relatively short period of time, maybe 6 to 8 months, my employer did find out
mm,
and they pulled me in
mm.
and we had a whole conversation. And they said, look, we don't have a problem with you doing this. We are okay with it, but it cannot impact your day job.
Sure.
It cannot, like, you can't be doing things when you're supposed to be working, for our projects and your paid income. You can't be taking off and, doing all these other things that are going to mean, you're not focusing on us. And as long as nothing you're doing is a competition where, again, working in a military environment, anything that's, basically NDA type stuff can't be shared.
Sure.
And I'm like, that's fine. I have no intention of
Yeah.
going into
Trade
having like
secrets
military
remain
clients or anything.
secrets. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, I kind of like they're on board, but they're watching hesitantly. Like you could see they were like, we'll see what happens. And over the years, like a year passed, two had passed, and all these things kind of evolved. And it's now at the point where, yeah, like I literally took vacation. I took a week vacation from my day job last week to travel to Maine and speak at a conference and take my daughter and go do a little mini vacay.
Yeah.
And most of the time they know when I take vacation, I'm going to a conference. I'm like, hey, I need Wednesday the 13th off. And they're like,
Mm,
okay.
hmm.
But they're okay. I'm entitled to my vacation hours. What I do on my vacation is my own
It's
choice.
true.
And now they have come to terms for the most part. Some days there might be a little hesitation because everyone has suspicious feelings now and then. But for the most part, they look at it like, hey, we have the best Instagram expert. We have a marketing leader in the world
That's true.
working on our team.
That's
We
true.
have literally the best of the best
Mm,
in house.
mm,
And although we don't market on Instagram and although we don't do a lot of marketing per se, I bring a very unique perspective. I'm going to conferences and I'm not charging them for my training. I'm going and learning all these marketing tactics. I'm learning SEO. I'm learning website. I'm learning Google. I'm learning, Facebook and LinkedIn. I'm learning all these
hmm,
things and they aren't even paying for it. I'm bringing it back and
hmm,
actually saving them money.
mm.
So while there's always some level of, how long can this last? After a decade, we've gotten to the point where we all just kind of like, Jen does what she does. She comes in, she does her job,
Yeah.
she goes off, she does that
Yeah.
job. We're fine.
Yeah. At some point, the worries had an expiration because, like, freak. But yeah, you've clearly successfully been able to show that you were able to have this duality without
Yes.
being a threat or a conflict,
Yeah.
and that's quite impressive. Now, I'm gonna have to dig a little bit more because I've heard I want to say it's a Japanese proverb, but maybe I'm misquoting, so don't come for me. But I think it says something along the lines of like the man that chases two rabbits catches none.
Mm.
And I not to project, but like I also worked somewhere and then I had started like a side
Yeah.
hustle, which was the agency and the agency, and it grew and it grew and it grew, but I was getting promoted and I was getting promoted and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
like one side's growing. I'm getting like both were going well. I was going nuts, but it was both technically were going well. And then I decided to procreate in that process somewhere along the lines too. So like, it was just a
Yep. Me
madhouse.
too.
Like I know I'm getting like a complete madhouse. How do you do it? Because again, the man that
Yeah.
chases two rabbits catches none. How do you find space, capacity for all of the pursuits? And I know that you're also a mom. So like, how did you do
Yeah.
it? Because I didn't do it very well.
And I'll admit, it's not easy. And to be completely honest and transparent,
Please.
I literally laughed when I realized today's podcast because I had a full blown like hysterical cry last night with like the mom fail, like
Oh no.
I am the worst mom on the planet. I am failing my child. I can't do this all. I give up. Like I full blown, like literally like 12 hours ago was in tears. And I'm on here like, I have to be inspirational.
Yeah. I'll give you a hug, Mom. I'll give you a hug because I've cried too. Don't worry. This morning
We've
when
all
we
been
get off, I'll tell you what my kid said to me this morning.
there. Okay. But
Ooh.
it is one of those things where for me,
Yeah.
and what I've talked to so many people that have started this side hustle.
Yeah.
The hardest thing about starting a business is the fear that comes with starting the business.
100.
And if you are going to quit your day job and launch a business, you need income. You need these resources. You need to get these sales leads, and the pressure is exponential. If you start a side hustle while you have income, you don't have that pressure. And as a mom, as a single mom, as a dedicated employee to a company that I've worked for years, having the like, I can dip my toe into the entrepreneurial water. I can create some content, but no one's going to freak out if I don't land that client. I'm not going to not pay rent if I don't secure that lead. And so it was a really easy way to start. Now, in all fairness to the advocacy of the proverb, you could say that for sake of argument, I could be so much further in my side business had I quit my day job. I could be making, $500,000, $600,000 a year and running my own events. And I could be, doing all these other things if I didn't have the day job.
Sure.
So there is, to a point, some truth to the proverb of like, I'm not where I wish my business was after a decade. After a decade, I wish I was doing more. But, I went through, my ex and I got divorced when my daughter was less than a year old. I paid the alimony and child support to him. So I had to work both jobs to pay the bills. I'm not going to quit a day job when I have big girl payments. No. And then my kid finally was like, we're ready to start school. And then COVID happened. Well, I'm not quitting a day job with benefits when COVID happens. Like, and so there's been all these life things that have happened where it's like, even if I don't want to quit my job, I have a very good balance that works for me. But even if I had said, this is the year I'm going to quit PKL, it wouldn't have translated because of all these other life experiences that happened. And I had the luxury of having that to know I would still get paid at the end of the month, to know I could pay my rent, to know that my daughter had healthcare when she needed it.
Yeah.
And so it is one of those things where like my trajectory is definitely longer and not as steep as I wish it was, but it's exactly where I need to be given my life circumstances. And we can't compare that to somebody else's journey.
Do you know what? I bow down to you. That I'm in so much admiration and respect for a radically honest answer, because that was brutally honest, and I'm here for it because it's true. And we're seeing it again. I mean, just in 2023, it's like the era of the calculated spender. Like, it's, go buy eggs, go buy gas, go buy, like, the cost of living is astronomical. And so like I get on these phone calls, I get on pathway call phone calls with a ton of aspiring rainmakers, these marketing leaders who want to do better. And there's so much anxiety and psychological unsafety about like, well, I don't know what the hell's going to happen, 6 months from now, 12 months from now. Like, all I know is that me not doing anything is just more expensive to be me and more expensive to like my household, And so there's a lot of fear. And yes, as an entrepreneur, it's consistently inconsistent. And so it's a totally different arena type to get into. And so I mean, I did the same thing that you did. I didn't do it as long as you did it, but I definitely had the corporate job and the side hustle.
Yeah.
There was a good 2-3 year overlap. And the biggest reason I couldn't cut it off was because I was so scared to cut the net.
Yeah.
It was terrifying.
Well, and I always say, I'm like, I can't leave the day job until I grow the side business. I can't grow the side business until I leave the day job. Like I'm literally in this catch-22 of like, for the sake of argument, I am stuck. And it's not that I'm stuck. I've built my brand. I still get to do amazing things. And I've had the ability to afford my daughter a very amazing lifestyle in San Diego, in a prestigious neighborhood, at one of the best schools in the county.
Go, Mom.
And I give her all of this because I have to. It's my choice. And I've made that decision. And that means maintaining both opportunities between a paid full-time job and a paying. I mean, my side gig brings in more money than most people do annually. Yeah. But I'm a single mom. Yeah. I need a dual income household.
Yeah, you are literally a dual income in one of you. That's 100%. Yeah, that's a beautiful way of saying it. Hey Rainmakers, it's Veronica, and we'll get back to today's episode. But before that, I have an exciting invitation for all of you aspiring, ambitious marketing leaders. If you are serious about advancing your career in marketing and you're looking for an expert to give you some personal insights, guidance, tips, then I'm going to invite you to schedule a free Pathway to Promotion call with me. This is a special one-on-one call with just you and me to discuss your current roadblocks in your career, your long-term aspirations and ambition, and the next best step for you and your personal promotion. Head to pathwaycall.com or click the link in my show notes to schedule your free Pathway to Promotion call. Now back to today's episode. So I guess let's flip the script. How do you, for those that are like us, a version of you today, the version of who I was a couple years ago, like these aspiring marketing leaders that I think they have aspirations to not be with, like, we're not going to like die with our gravestones being, I was the employee of such and such. Like, it's just not going to happen. So like, you know, they're itching for like that next chapter, to that next phase, that next, you know, evolution of themselves. What are those early stage advice that you'd give them in dipping the toe when it comes to social media presence and personal branding? And like, I'm just curious how you would advise them as they start to do this.
So I would say, yes, get out there and get on social media, build your brand, get yourself an Instagram account or a Facebook page or a TikTok account, whatever it is that is not your personal stuff. Like your personal stuff is you, your kids, your family, your vacations, your whatever. If you're going to build a brand, you need it. You can have personal stuff in your brand. Go look at my Instagram account. I literally have photos of my daughter in there because that's part of my life. That's part of my brand. But you need a brand presence. And that can start off with the most basic of content. It doesn't have to be, I'm posting 5 times a day and I'm doing all these videos and I'm doing all this content. It's about creating a brand around what you want to be known for. So if you want to grow a marketing agency, if you want to be known in a specific niche, like if you specifically work with florists and you just want to work with florists, start posting content related to that industry and start showing your expertise. Don't be afraid to admit that you started out without the experience. Like maybe your diehard passion is photography and you've never even owned a DSLR. And you went out and you bought yourself a DSLR and you're like, I'm going to learn this. You can create brand content around learning about building this up, because in 2 or 3 years, you're going to be an expert and someone's going to come find your content about getting started and they're going to learn from you on how you got started. We don't need to start out being an expert. We don't need to be this perfectly polished, you know, overnight success story. Because honestly, that's a lie. And people will see it. Like you're better off just saying, I bought my first DSLR and I'm going to figure it out. Like embrace it, but start creating content around what you want to do. Start building your authority. Start building a presence, start connecting with people in that industry, other photographers in that case, or, you know, if you're going to conferences or, you know, webinars, whatever you can do, start connecting with those people and building up that network. Because honestly, that was my key to success. When I started my little tiny blog, you know, almost 11 years ago, I was very fortunate to make some really good friends who back in the day had Google Plus channels that were like hundreds of thousands of viewers. I know.
Oh my gosh.
I'm dating myself.
Yeah. And
almost
my MySpace. Yeah.
A little AOL.
Oh, okay. This is good. I'm just gonna put it out there. My AOL Messenger name was Little Hot Latina 24/7. Uh-oh.
Nice.
I'm pretty sure I was 14, 15. I had no business being Little Hot Latina
Hot Latina.
24/7 on AOL Messenger. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, Mom. Oh gosh. Okay. I have to ask you. So I'm asking on behalf of all the marketers that I have the blessing and honor of like helping and mentoring and coaching. But like what you said, what do you want to be known for? Okay, so there's two parts to this question.
Yeah.
One, how the freak do you figure out what you want to be known for? But also two, not every microphone is the microphone for you. So like some people are really great on camera, get a camera, get on YouTube. Some people are really good at short form content. Some people are really good on stage. Some people are great at podcasting. So I think one thing is like how figuring out what I want to say or be known for. And then also then part two is like figuring out where to say it, like how to distribute that. And so like, I'm curious you started off in writing, you were blogging, but Instagram is not, yes, you can write mini blogs ish on captions, but for the most part, it's now also a very visual microphone. So like, I'm curious what advice you'd give in that pursuit.
So in terms of finding out what you want to be known for, there has to be a passion behind it. If you're working a full-time job, if you are a full-time parent, if you are doing anything and you're dipping your toe into this, I want to do something, please do not just go out and be like, well, I followed this person and I did this webinar and they said I should be a marketing agent. If you have zero interest in marketing, please don't be a marketing agent. Find where your passion is. Or if you love marketing, but you really want to hone in on that unique niche, where are your passions? So, for example, Jay Bear, who's very big in the marketing space, love him. He's been one of the biggest names in marketing for over a decade.
I love Jay Bear, yeah.
And he's recently spun off into tequila and he's become a tequila expert. He's huge. He has books. He's got podcasts. He's going to like these massive industry events hosted by tequila manufacturers. And he's invited as their special guest because he's created this industry around that. You can take Pat Flynn, who again, massive in the internet and marketing space. He now runs a massively successful Pokemon channel that my daughter listens to religiously. And he started this Pokemon channel with his son. So now granted, both these guys already had platforms where they could go and create these kind of spin-offs and be massively successful, but they chose a passion project.
Yeah.
And for me, Instagram became the passion project. I liked social media, but I loved the photography. I loved the way Instagram worked. And it was just a natural inclination where my body said, this is what you want to do. And we have to listen to ourselves. We have to listen. Like if we're trying to shoehorn ourselves into a topic or an industry or a lane that if it's work and it's hard work, there's moments of that, but you have to like want to do it. And if you're not wanting to do it, it is not the right path for you. So find those things that are more passion driven, the thing where you don't mind getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning on Saturday when your kids are asleep and putting in those 2 hours because you just can't stop thinking about it. That's where you want to put the time and energy.
It's a really good litmus test. Like if you're that curious, you know what I mean? Like it's like you follow your curiosity and like in curiosity, you find the passion, right? And so if you're that passionate about it, you're that curious about it, you're willing to sacrifice your sleep. That's a pretty good indication, that like maybe that there's something here that can go further.
Whereas, if your response is, oh, I have to leave the kids because I have to go home and work on this blog post, then that's not where you want to be. You're not going to build a successful brand that's going to last multi-year length and grow to the level that you want, that you're thinking of. It's not going to grow there if you're not passionate about it. And sure, you could do something and be massively successful, but you'll probably sell it after 3 or 4 years or shutter it because it's not where your passion is. It's not where you're going to sacrifice family time and personal time to do those things. So it really is finding that. And if there's an industry, then hone down into the niche. Like find that area that's going to give you the passion where you want to go.
Yeah, like tequila.
And so where to go in terms of your content, and I always tell people, I say, start where you're comfortable.
Yeah.
So if I tell everybody, and I know Instagram even knows this, I hate Reels. I hate TikTok. I can't do it. I don't watch them. I don't like them. And I hate creating them. I do them because I have to.
It's like a necessary evil.
Exactly. But that's not where I started. For me, I can crank out 1,000-word blog post, proofread it myself, and have it published in under an hour. That's a superpower. That's my natural inclination to sit down and type up a blog post and hit post. So I could create content quickly without doing the, okay, here, let me get on camera, let me do some editing, let me throw in, an intro and my outro and do like, I have friends who can do that in a matter of, they can do a 15-minute video and all the editing in under 2 hours.
No, thank
Me,
you.
that's going to take me a week.
Yeah.
So I don't do
Hours.
that kind of content because it's not where my natural tendency is. And that doesn't have to do with the technology and all the tools. It has to do with where your brain and skill set take you. So if you're starting out and you are great with doing short form video like TikTok and Reels, girl, own that. Go do it. Create the content there. If you're a writer, create a blog. Go on Reddit, go on LinkedIn, go on a platform where you can write and share thoughts and have these beautifully well-written stories that you can share with your community. Go where it makes sense to create that type of content. And then once you've landed that, once you've secured that foundation, then you add on, okay, well, now I'll do some short form videos on top of my written content, or I'll have somebody take my short form content, transcribe it, and turn it into a blog post for me. So you're creating the written content after you're doing where your natural inclination takes you.
No, I think that resonates with me a lot because I was just talking about this earlier today. Like time is a finite resource. We all get 24 hours. Like no one has a cheat where that you can have 24th hour. It's not how it works. But like energy, right, is an infinite resource because you're self-producing. Like that's a generation of self, right? That you can produce your own energy. And so I thought about that for me too. Like when I'm filming content in my office, in the four walls of my office, it feels like a padded, cell. I really struggle. There's no energy that I can find in conversing with a device or putting on a camera. But like when I'm on stage or I'm talking to you on a podcast, or I'm in even like fulfillment mode where I'm like coaching members. So I'm in the fulfillment side of the business, not even the marketing side of the business, but it's in those pursuits where I actually generate the most energy. So even if I start the day super tired, because I just finished a 4-day event, I get on a podcast with you and I can feel myself energizing in this conversation because I'm feeding off your energy and your vibes and the conversation's flowing. It is. And it's fun. And so I've learned for me that my style or my medium of voice distribution or personal brand distribution where I'm best is where my energy is also actually being recharged while I'm doing it. So this is really like the podcast is a really great medium for me. Being on stage is a great medium for me, or in coaching mode is also a great medium for me. So like, I think that there's something to be said about like, pay very close attention to where you feel energy being increased, not decreased in the pursuit of making content for yourself,
And it's also okay to realize that, like, I always say I'm a very introverted extrovert. I will stand on stage in front of 1,000 people and I will own that room. And I will get off that stage and I will talk to every single person in the room. But put me in a room with 20 strangers that I don't know in a talk, like it's not like an Instagram topic. It's not a marketing conference. You put me in a room with 20 strangers. I'm the girl hanging out in the corner because I don't have that confidence. Like when I'm talking Instagram, when I'm talking marketing and I'm around people that are in the same industry, I have a confidence and that charges me. It gives me that like, okay, I've got this and I can own this. But you take me out of that confidence bubble and I'm that shy little kid that's hiding in the back that's just like waiting for someone to come and invite me to go play on the playground. And that's okay. Like it's easy for us to get pigeonholed into, well, I'm an introvert and I don't like being on stage. Okay, but you don't have to be on stage. You can be on a podcast.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because labels can either empower you or disempower you depending on, you know what I mean? So that's a very good point. Okay, so something that we do on this podcast is we let our guest ask the final question. The tables turn because everything I just asked you was not prepared or scripted, and you've been a great sport. So now you get to put me in the hot seat and ask me whatever you'd like to ask me, both personal or professional.
So I think what I want to ask, because you alluded to this, how did you make the decision to leave your day job and fully embrace being on your own?
Multiple things. I think for me, it really came down to like I was breaking on the inside. So like one of my core values is like integrity, but integrity is also like the same definition as to be whole. And so like I could feel I was out of integrity with myself because I was out of wholeness with myself. I felt the fragmentation on the inside. I felt the split where I was like, here I am, director of marketing, for this big company, and I have a whole staff, and but also now I have a staff on the agency side because we had grown to like 700,000 plus, I think. Like so, here we are, Like, and I'm being torn. And like I was telling you, like I had kids. And so
Yeah.
my boys, James was still in a diaper and Miles was still, he still had all of his baby teeth. They hadn't popped out yet. Like, so like we're still in the little people stage.
Yeah.
And I have these two professional pursuits, and also I'm a wife, and all these, like, just and church, responsibilities, and my family responsibility. Like, there was just a lot at the same time, and I could physically feel it where I was starting to break and like almost like corrode from the inside. I had gone as far as I could go holding all the things. And it felt like I was juggling glass balls. Like any one of them wouldn't just bounce back like it used to. Like at any given point, it just felt like it would break if I dropped it. And I was losing my mind. So like there just had to come a point. And I had the conversation with my husband at the time. I was like, I can't keep doing both. So either you take the agency full time and I can stay employed, or I got to take the agency because it's going to suffer and I can't keep doing this to my employer either. And like, it just, I wasn't the best. And so it really did come to like a darker place, unfortunately, than it came to like, ooh, I'm thriving. Let's thrive more. Like, it wasn't like that, if I'm being radically honest too.
Which I think is true for so many of us, right? Like, we are so programmed in society, especially as women and as moms, to do it all and do it all with a smile on your face.
For reals,
don't complain. Don't tell people that you need help. And if you ask for help, it's because you're weak, and how could you not do it all on your own? And when you're in a position like that, where you have so much success on both sides, like you have two massively successful careers, it's a lot of pressure. And
Superwoman
syndrome.
Is
like, it's hard to make that decision. And I think, for the sake of argument, most women in that position, and that's honestly a fear. I fear that I'm going to get to that stage where, when I do choose one over the other, it will be more out of a state of like necessity and exhaustion, more so than, hey, I'm ready to do this, and I'm going to do this on my terms. It becomes a matter of survival almost to have to pick one.
And if I could go back, and I think that's a really fair point, if I could have played the game, like that movie where you like time travel, if I could go back, have that one more day or whatever, knowing what I know now, I would have, when I was building the business, every dollar was put right back in to like, eat what I hunt. So like I was a self-funded CEO, right? So I just kept on putting money back into the agency or hiring, like I just kept going. But what I didn't do was, one, I didn't pay myself like I should have. And then number two, I wasn't also taking a percentage from the business and putting it away so that I could at least have 6 to 8 months of expenses covered. So like if I could go back having more of the financial savviness that I do today, presently, that I didn't have then, I would have played the numbers game very differently. Because I felt like that also held me hostage. I wasn't a good steward over the financials of the business in a way that then leaving the company felt more thriving-ish. It just didn't. It was just wild. And so that would be the one thing that, like, anybody who has a current side hustle, I think, be a little bit more financially sound with how you're allocating what you're making on the side hustle so that it can realistically replace the full-time, because you're already making those choices now. You're already paying yourself now. Like, there's a great book that everybody loves. It's called Profit First by Mike Michalowicz, or like pay yourself first. So like things like that, I think I would have done it much differently than I had when I did.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
I'm just filing that away in the Rolodex.
Well, I didn't even know that was going to come out of my mouth. So here we go. But Jenn, thank you for being on the podcast. Thank you for coming and sharing your story and sharing your wisdom and like just saying some radically honest things. That's always my favorite part about the podcast, is the unscripted moments, kind of the raw truths of this journey in marketing that we all find ourselves to be on this roller coaster of life. We're going to link everything to you and then some in the show notes, just for the person who's listening. Where can they connect with you best?
Yeah, so pretty much everywhere I'm Jenn's Trends. So it's jennstrends.com. It's 2 N's in Jenn. So JENNS trends.com. That links to pretty much everything. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I've got a membership dedicated to Instagram marketing, where we have marketers from around the world that come in and learn from both myself and a guest expert every month. And we do office hours. So if you want to learn more about Instagram, you can check out profityourprofile.com.
Perfect. Thank you, Jenn, for being on today's Rainmaker podcast. Thank you for joining us on today's Rainmaker podcast. Marketers help other marketers. So if there's a marketer in your life who could really use a new perspective in a way that helps them advance their career, please pass this episode forward, share, leave us a review. Everything helps as we embark on helping as many marketers elevate themselves inside and out. You can always visit veronicarami.com for today's show notes, additional links to some free resources and tools for you to help you advance your career. You can always connect with us on social media at @VRami if you want more behind the scenes or a way for us to connect personally. Until next time, my friends, make it rain.